Hello, Mr. Harper. I'm sending you another video message. I have many reasons for keep sending these, and I'm going to continue sending these until you are no longer my Prime Minister. When you told Canadian people that the oil sands were our economic engine during a time of great financial struggle around the world, you told us that Canadians would benefit. When did you find out China wanted in? And when did you decide that you were going to let China have our oil without having the discussion with Canadians first? I have to ask, though, if the oil sands are a resource of Canadians, then why do Albertans retain 70% of those resources? You would think it would be a 50-50 share, 50% for their province and 50% shared around the rest of the country. Well, that's not happening. And why is it that Alberta takes precedence over British Columbia for a pipeline that isn't going to affect their real environment? Do you not think that British Columbians have a say? Wouldn't it be better if you actually included them and made a decision based on everyone's concerns? More importantly, let's think about this for a moment. What's more important? Oil company profits or our environment and science? How about the people of Canada? I suspect that if there were ever a serious and terrible disaster due to this pipeline, due to an oil tank spill in a seaway that really is not navigable, what impact would that have? It's a question I ask myself. I'm sure it's many questions and many of us Canadians are asking, but you don't seem too concerned. And maybe it's because you're seeing the almighty dollar over the almighty citizen. And that's a pretty dangerous thing to do. We have to have a balance in this country. We have to determine if revenue development for the better of profit is more important than the Canadian citizen. My money's on the Canadian citizen. I truly believe that with the knowledge in this world, not just in Canada, but around the globe, I believe that there are scientists who can create as sustainable, environmentally friendly resources that the oil companies do. But why aren't we investing in that? Or if we are, we're not investing enough, and we all know that. Mr. Harper, you taught Canadians the true meaning of prorogation. And you want to know why? Because previous to you doing it twice, we hadn't seen it being done in well over 50 years. So Canadians got a history lesson. However, we see what it's doing. You're concentrating on one part of this country when your job is to concentrate on every part. Your job is to bring Canadians together, not put us further apart, not divide us by taxes, not divide us by resources. But that's what you're doing. I want a Prime Minister that's going to represent all of Canada, that's going to go to work every day and think, what does this do for every Canadian? You don't do that. It's more than clear you don't. We also have to think about the other political parties in this country. When we think about the votes that got split between the Liberal Party and the NDP, the Green Party, the Independent, and the Bloc Québécois, we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing? There has to be a divide that seems to make sense for most Canadians, if not all. I don't hate conservatives. I just don't believe that trickle-down economics works. I think the Americans have proved that. I think the U.S. economy is proving it day and day. You know, we have the brilliance of a strong, healthy, well-educated workforce in Canada, and we're not taking advantage of that because we're too busy looking at our Prime Minister and his conservative majority creating omnibus bills from everything that includes the environment, our budget, our waterways, our Aboriginal people. These are all issues. But they're separate issues, and they're important equally, not one or the other over another. Mr. Harper, you've set us on a course that seems very dangerous. I can't stand by and watch you do this. And I will tell you, every day until 2015. And then on the day I mark my ballot, I'm certainly not picking you, and I'm not picking anybody in your party. You've proven not to be truthful. You've proven that you're not transparent. You have people like Dean Del Mastro, who to this day refuses to talk about the donation fraud that happened in 2008. You have Vic Taves telling Canadians that if we don't agree with an internet spying bill, that we side with pedophiles. We don't. You also have people like John Baird who think it's important to yell his concerns, his issues, rather than work across the floor and try to have some equal discussion and let us debate the issues. You don't do that. You know, you have ministers who have time and time again been questioned on their ethical obligations as ministers. And more importantly, you send air pilots back to work when it's not your legal right to do that. They have a bargaining agreement that is supposed to be set out in the law. You shouldn't be interfering with that. They are not federal government employees. But you did. You didn't do it once, you did it twice. So if you're going to do that, why don't you send the NHL players back to work? Because that's what you should be doing if you're going to interfere in unions. I also think you need to consider a couple of more things. You need to consider that you made a promise to Canadians to get rid of that Senate. You haven't done that. You also need to tell Canadians what your true intentions are about our health care. You need to also tell us exactly why no one in your government is standing up and taking responsibility for the election fraud that we know happened. I'm just beside myself because you did this. You openly did this. You didn't honestly do it, but you did it. You were too busy telling us how we were going to save another 1% on GST rather than telling us that airplanes were $25 billion. You didn't tell us about old age security. You told another country that. And then you decided to tell Canadians that resources were the most important thing to Canadians. But you secretly and you quietly went and had discussions with China about getting that oil. So exactly when were you going to tell us? We are a democracy, sir. What's the brilliance about our democracy is that we can tell you we don't like you. But you haven't earned our trust. You haven't given us a reason to give you any faith in what you do. And quite frankly, you should be worried because the tides are changing. We are seeing the true Stephen Harper. And I don't think you like much of yourself because we certainly are starting not to like you more and more every day. I can only do one thing, and that is tell you how I feel, and I'm going to continue telling you how I feel. And I'm encouraging other Canadians to do the same. It's time to stand up to Mr. Harper and this so-called majority and say, we want to be heard. And if you stop listening now, we're glad that if we take your asses out in 2015, don't blame us for it. Blame yourselves.